Hey y'all, welcome into a Saints Packers pregame live chat from TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. My name is Jeff Nowak. Apologies for some of the lighting, and if you're having trouble hearing me, it's a weird setup this week as we try to figure out where we are in Jacksonville. It's a hot day, as you can see. I'm sweating a little bit. I was wandering around outside the stadium trying to catch some Packers fans, some Saints fans, and tailgate action, see what's going on. It is a lot of Packers fans out there. Be prepared. I was talking to my Hobbs, who's actually down there behind me. I think that there's a chance that we end up with a late arriving Saints crowd. I think that's kind of the deal in terms of how Saints fans kind of interact. So we'll see what happens. If you have any questions, any comments, please throw them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them live. Obviously, there's a lot of sound going on behind me. We got an open air stadium. It's loud. If you have a little trouble hearing me, I apologize. Don't have my normal mic set up, so just trying to make it do with the headphones and see what happens. First, let's go to some questions. Or we don't have any questions, but we have a few Whodats. Robert Clark, thanks for being here. Again, my name is Jeff Nowak, digital sports producer for Odyssey and WWL Radio. Giving you a live chat, and there's a lot of things that we should get into and need to get into before this game starts. The first being who's playing cornerback, because right now we're not entirely sure. Yesterday, Marshawn Lattimore was downgraded from having no game day designation to questionable after he was added to the injury report on Thursday, ahead of Friday. Sorry, and that's a question, and it's a position that the Saints are going to have trouble with because they don't have the depth there. They already lost Ken Crawley to IR for at least the first 3 weeks of the season. Who knows how long it takes him to get back? But that's a position that already had depth issues. You traded for Bradley Roby. He's going to be inactive week 1. And so what do you have? Is it Paulson Adebo? Is it Desmond Trufant? Is it some combination of TJ Williams, maybe even CJ Gardner-Johnson working to the outside? Who knows? But I think you're going to see Marshawn Lattimore try to play. He was listed with a knee injury. You saw him out warming up before the game. I'd be shocked if he doesn't at least give it a go. Who knows how much that's going to limit him? Obviously, he's going to have to match up with Devontae Adams or whoever else is on his side of the field. And it's going to be a factor. Aaron Rodgers, as good as there is at finding a weak link and hammering it. I mean, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. That's the cliche, but it's true in this sense. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers spots a weakness on either side of the field, he's going to attack it, whether that's Marshawn Lattimore a little limited or whether that's a guy like Paulson Adebo in his first career start. He's going to get tested. We're going to have to see how he handles it. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously, Jameis Winston making his first Saints start. I was on WWL with Steve Geller and Scott Alexander this morning, and we were kind of going over the fact that, there's a chance that Jameis actually feels more comfortable starting outside in Jacksonville in a state where he played his college football, where he played 5 years of his career, than he would be at the Superdome at this point. He's used to playing outside. He's used to playing in the heat. I think this is a comfortable setting for him. He's obviously played outdoors more than he's played indoors at this point in his career, so that's good for him. For some other guys, it's going to be interesting on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to have to see how these guys kind of handle the heat, handle the humidity, handle staying hydrated. Do they get some IVs at halftime? How do you manage that part of the game is going to be a big part going into this. The Packers are going to be in the same boat. One question here. How can we get pressure on number 12? I mean, the Saints are going to get pressure. It's just a question of how much can they impact Aaron Rodgers throughout the game. And because he's as good as anybody at moving in the pocket. He's not the most athletic guy you'll ever find, but he's a master at negotiating traffic in the pocket. He's a master at, getting to a spot, relocating to a new launch point, and then just whipping it downfield. We saw him do that against the Saints last year, where he rolled out opposite his arm side, just kind of flipped his hips, and threw a laser about 40, 50 yards downfield to Alan Lazard for a touchdown. That really kind of felt like a momentum-breaking touchdown at that point for the Saints, who had done pretty well defensively at that point in the game. He can do that as well as anyone. But the Saints, I would argue the Saints' strength of their defense is the pass rush, getting after the quarterback. Make him uncomfortable, make him feel you. Where that's going to be a question mark is the interior. Can they hold up for a guy like A.J. Dillon be able to just pound for yards, pound for positive yards inside the tackles, which will make it a lot more difficult to hold up on the outside because you're going to have to bring additional help over the middle with the linebackers and then just create. Anytime the offense is dictating what the defense has to do rather than the defense doing what they want to do, that's a win for the offense. So it's going to be interesting to see. Marcus Davenport is a guy who I fully expect to wreck games this season for the Saints. He's been incredible. He's been fast. He's been just beastly. Strong arms. He's a guy who needs to step up. Cam Jordan's obviously Cam Jordan. You got Carl Granderson. You got all these other guys, but Marcus Davenport's going to be the key to this game, in my opinion. The way he forces Aaron Rodgers to make decisions earlier than he wants to, it's going to be a huge factor. Defense. We've got Roderick. Defense is a problem for me. Will Dennis Allen keep our defense ranked in the top 15? I don't have confidence in him. I think until Dennis Allen proves you wrong, you believe in him, right? I mean, this is a guy who has led this defense to not only positive results, to winning football. The defense has won games for this team. They've done it right in this stadium. 2 years ago, they showed up in Jacksonville to play the Jags. Not a bad team that year. They had some positive momentum. Gardner Minshew had all the hype. They came in here and they held that offense to 6 points. That was when Breeze was out. Teddy Bridgewater was the starter. They won 12-6. That's the Dennis Allen defense that we've experienced. So until they'll get off to slow starts, but you have to appreciate how good teams improve throughout the season. Bad teams fall off, right? Good teams scout well. Good teams prepare well. Good teams adjust well. Bad teams don't. So I think when you see the Saints kind of struggle defensively to start the year, that's a sign that they haven't been able to scout because there's no tape. There isn't enough tape. As the season goes on, they're able to make adjustments based off of film, based off of tape, based off of study, and that's why they get a little better. But you need them now. You need them this week to get off to a good start this season. Last year, I think the number one seed was lost by week 3 with those 2 back-to-back losses to Las Vegas and Green Bay, and you just can't keep getting off those slow starts. So hopefully they can fix that, and we'll see how it happens today. That secondary is going to get tested. They're going to have to hold up. Brian, maybe rush forward. I've got like I was saying, wait for him to move, and then put pressure on him for the spy. I don't think he's spy Aaron. I don't think he's spying because he's not looking to run, and you don't want to take a guy out of coverage just to account for a quarterback who's getting out of the pocket to pass, right? Because if you take a guy and can say, okay, you're going to spy Aaron Rodgers, then that just opens up space over the middle of the field, and he's going to take advantage of that. What you need to do is get pressure, and keep in mind you're going to see the pass rushers get upfield, but they're going to need to be contained rushes, not necessarily just fly, bull rushes into the quarterback where he can just escape outside. So the defensive ends, one of their responsibilities is going to be to not only get upfield, but to keep Aaron Rodgers in the pocket, force him to be a pocket passer, and then you collapse it around him so he can't escape. But if you lose your composure, you lose your containment and get too far upfield, then you can just step through, create that lane, and give yourself an extra half second to throw it downfield. That's when you get in trouble, and that's when you see those huge plays, right? If you go back to the Allen Lazard play, like I was talking about before, he got that extra time. He's able to relocate because he just spun out of a bootleg and just got his launch point outside of the pocket, right? If you're containing a little better and you can keep him inside, it limits where he can go, it limits the angle he can create, and it makes it a little easier to play on the back end. I think you are going to see more blitzes this time around than you have in the past. One, because the Saints have an excellent linebacker group. I don't know how much Juwan Alexander is going to play, but the Saints have a very deep linebacker group. They're going to take advantage of it. And beyond that, you don't have that strong interior play that you're used to. I mean, the Malcolm Brogdon, Shy Tuttle, Josiah Bronson, whoever it is in there, they're going to have a lot cut out for them. And I think they're going to be decent players, but you have to give them a little help. You're going to have to get a little bit of linebacker pressure on top of that to handle the run up the middle, because if the Packers just start just chewing up yards in the middle of the field, it's going to be a long day. You can't allow that to happen. You're going to have to force turnovers, and the linebackers are going to be a big part of that. That's a good question. I will tell you that I have both of Juwan Johnson and Adam Troutman in the fantasy league. I started Juwan Johnson. Now, it's not because I don't like Adam Troutman. It's not because I think that Adam Troutman isn't a good player. It's just the upside of Juwan Johnson, especially at this point in the season where the Saints don't have the weapons that you expect them to have later in the year. it just opens up for Juwan down the middle of the field. You're gonna see him on seam routes. You're gonna see him just stretch open that interior of the defense, and he might not get targeted 10 times. Troutman might get more targets, but the upside of Juwan Johnson's targets, and I'm talking about a fantasy perspective here, uh, is a lot higher. I think that Juwan Johnson could catch 3 passes for 100 yards. Adam Troutman could catch 8 passes for 60 yards. The value of either is relative, right? If 5 of those are for first downs, those are incredibly valuable. But if Juwan Johnson breaks one play for 60-yard touchdown, that's 7 points. So, I think we really shouldn't look at them as guys who it's like one or the other. They play the same position, they don't play the same position, right? Like if you're talking about Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, how they had that set up, they're both running backs. They're very different running backs. You wouldn't say that. Oh, should I look at Alvin or should I look at Latavius? They're two very different things. Now it's Tony Jones Jr. in that spot, but the point still stands. Very different players. Don't try to figure out one versus the other. Figure out how you can use both in unique ways. And I think that's going to happen. If I had to pick one, I'd say Juwan has a slightly bigger day just because they need people down to stretch the ball down there. Good question. I think it's going to be Lattimore on one side. He's questionable, but he's been warming up. I think he's going to be in there, and I think you're going to probably see Paulson Adebo making that start. It could be Troutman. He just got into town, well, into Fort Worth, I should say. He's going to play. I just don't know how much you trust the guy 4 days into the year. You're going to have Roby week 2, so there might be some benefit in just seeing what you have in Paulson because you know that he's the long-term option, right? You know that he's a guy you drafted. You want to develop him and get him out there and see what he can do. If he struggles, you go to Troutman, but I would guess it's Paulson and Marshawn. And Paulson has looked good. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can sit here and say the Saints are in trouble. The Saints don't have the secondary, but the guys they have out there, Crawley look good. Paulson's look good. It's just a question of the experience and how they can handle it. So we'll go from there. It's a good question. Here's the thing. I found that from my experience watching these awards, it's usually the hurt guys that get the beneficial treatment at the end of the year when you're talking about comeback play of the year, right? It's rarely a guy who just didn't play for a variety of reasons. This year you have guys like Joe Burrow coming in. You have Saquon Barkley. You have Christian McCaffrey. If any of those guys has a blow up season, just destroys it, then they win, right? But if they don't, right? If all those guys struggle or they have kind of pedestrian seasons, I think you could see Jameis come out with it. So, it's a dumb question to worry about this point in the year, but he's definitely in the consideration. And if he can come out and have a season that would merit comeback player of the year, I think we can start talking about it a little more. But I think it's definitely a fair assessment. But all right, I think that's all the questions we have. It's about 3:08 on the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time. Well, we got one more. Let's see. Brian again. As always, Peyton is going to come up with stuff because the playmakers are the best position big plays. He said so. Do you see a low-scoring game or a high-scoring game? Low-scoring game versus high-scoring game. It's always tough. I'm sorry, I'm really sweaty, so I apologize. It's always tough when you're trying to figure that out. I'm losing my mic. But as I get this out and then I get rid of it, I think that generally speaking, you see high-scoring games when offenses don't put the defense in good position, when you're turning the ball over, when you are forcing the defense to go back on the field right after a takeaway, right after a score, quick change. That's when you see high-scoring games. If the Saints defense plays to its potential, limits the big plays, then it's low scoring. But it could go either way. It's just so tough to predict. I think the Saints are going to try to ball control the heck out of this thing, knowing that the defense is not in its prime position, and they're going to go from there. But who's to say Aaron Rodgers should come out for 500 yards? Week 1's weird. We're going to figure it out. But that's all. I appreciate you sticking with me. I know the lighting and the sound is not ideal, but we'll make it work. Next week we'll be back. I'll be back in New Orleans for the first time in about 2 weeks. So get a bit better. Thanks for everyone who checked it out. Again, my name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Digital Sports Producer, and we're about an hour and 10 out of game time. Let's see what happens. Peace.